So I started with just peeling my apples, getting as thin a peel as I could because, they're going to shrink a lot when they're dehydrated. So I got them all peeled and then I carved in some faces. So I just poked some holes for eyes and a couple slits for noses and for the mouth. I also added a couple extra little pokes and slits for wrinkles or creases. I discovered I'm not that great of a face artist, at least on apples. So, anyways, but I worked with what I ended up with. I had done a little research on this part on how to keep them from getting brown. Um, And I may try one without doing any preservatives in the future and see how it turns brown if it starts to rot before it dries. Um, but for now, anyways, I did a little research, and a lot of them kept saying to use non-iodized salt. And okay, so I did have some pickling salt here that was non-iodized, but I thought I'll try just some regular table iodized salt too and see. And it turns out, it doesn't really matter which one you use. I did that research for us. Lemon juice was just a few squirts of that lemon into some cold water. And I let my apples sit in there for about 3 minutes each. And then I just did some salt rolled in it or sprinkled. So I put 3 of them in my dehydrator at 135 Fahrenheit, and I put 18 hours. I did end up adding a few hours just to make sure they were fully dehydrated. I didn't want any rotten heads. And the other I hung up in my craft room, and it will take 3 to 4 weeks hanging up. So I just wanted to try doing it both ways. Now that our heads are getting shrunken, we can work on bodies for them. So I am using up some coil wire from notebooks I had saved, also a couple scrap pieces of garden wire. Um, Using up all my scrap wire, and then I'll use any new wire that I need to as well. So first thing we have to do is do a little math. So I have my little cheat note here it's with my doll making stuff, and for how many heads or how many head lengths a body should be for an average size body. So I'll work that out so I know how tall my dolls should be for average and according to their head. I'll have my formula right here on the screen for you as well. And once we get our math done, then we can cut our wire. And I'll fold the wire in half, and so I get from the neck, and I leave an inch to go up into the apple, and then I go to where the inseam crotch would be, and then I separate the doubled wire so that I have my legs. And from there, I just add on either, if I have a large enough piece of wire, I'll put the arms as one piece of wire, or I'll add separate. These dolls were a lot of fun to make. I call crafting my therapy. Um, and this was a lot. I guess I enjoy making the clothes part and decorating them up once the bodies are made, because those were, you know, okay, but not the fun part. So I made three of the wire skeletons, armature, for my doll heads. And then we wrapped them with some scrap fabric strips. So I started the chest area and wrap around one side, down one arm. Then I'll start at the chest again and wrap out to the other arm. And I'm trying to keep it so that it's pretty evenly wrapped. I don't want it a lot tighter on one arm than the other, because then one arm will be thicker than the other. So, and I'm just going to add a little touch of glue here and there where I need to secure it. Now, this one I had put some cotton. These are just cotton balls. And I put that on the hands and feet just as a little pattern. On the others, now I just let the cloth wrap stop at the foot or right at the tip of the hand, and then I'm going to just cover those with felt for like mitts or boots. It's just a creative process, Not one of these dolls will be alike, of course. So, once I had the arms wrapped, I went on to the body. Once the body was wrapped, then I wrapped down the legs. When I had the whole wire skeleton wrapped once, I went and wrapped it again just to have a little thicker doll. These are fully posable though with the wire skeletons. It makes them, I'm sure, great to play with or to decorate with. So to put the head on, I just poked a hole up with this tool here. Could use anything, I didn't want to bend my wire all up, so I pre-poked about an inch. So now that we have some bodies, it's time to give them some clothing. So I had just did a couple different ways here for the grandma apple doll. I made her some mittens from felt just by gluing the mitten shapes on the ends of her hands. And then as on her feet, I just cut some rectangles of felt and sewed up the back side and then attached them to her feet and crisscrossed the front. I just made it up as I went along. The same as for the other, I give her some yellow felt rectangles and I just folded them over and then glued down the edges as well. And it's fine. They're like slippers or mitts, and it doesn't have to be fancy. It's just good protection for the wire that's in there. So for the dresses, I just kept it simple. I laid down my doll form and traced the out. I give about a centimeter, a quarter of an inch, whatever, on the outside of each arm, leg, body, and I had double material, so I just cut that out. So I had two of each. So I chose some fabrics for grandma. I had this apple fabric and already had some lace attached from something previously. I can't remember, but uh, and then I did find some other green for another one. I'm going to make one of them a boy doll, uh, but I just wanted to make sure though that the fabric has a print that's small enough because these are small dolls, so I don't want to use too big of a print. So once I had my dress drawn out, then I just cut that out and I attached some lace. Um, I gluing it onto the front of the dress. I let it go over the edge a bit so that when I am putting the dress front to back together that it will overlap a little. Then I just made sure that, it was the right side facing out, and I started gluing it to my doll. I glued the body part first, made sure everything was lined up well, and then I glued from the underarm down the length of the arm on both sides. I wrapped the underside of the material on this one up over the arm and then wrapped the top side material down over that. For grandma, I also made her a under slip as well to go with her dress. Then I made them both some aprons by cutting some squares of material and then just attaching some lace to the front, doing a little pleat in the corner. On the yellow one, I actually went with a ribbon waistband, and I had to put a few pleats in the apron itself to make it so it was narrow enough for this doll. And I just tied that in the back with a bow and trimmed it up. And give it a little touch of glue in the front as well, just to secure it. Added a few little buttons onto her bodice. And then we're ready to move on to our heads. I chose some beads for eyes. I used hazel for the one and then some green beads for Grandma's eyes. I put a little dab of hot glue in the eye hole, and then place the bead in there. Adjusted it so it was, they were about the same depth. Now for Grandma, I'm using just some cotton from the cotton ball, and I just pulled it apart, and I'm just gluing that and covering the apple head with it. Once I was satisfied with how her hairdo was, not that it mattered, I'm making her this bonnet to go on it as well. Which, there was probably an easier way to make this. There is a lot of times when I'm grafting, I find that an easier way. I'm thinking towards the end of doing something. And, when I do another one, I may remember that. I may not too. So when I was happy with her hairdo, I then, you know, glued up her bonnet, and then I give it a gather stitch around the outside and pulled that so it was a little puffy and smaller bonnet, and I put that cap on her head with just a little touch of glue. Now for my other lady, now I'm doing a jute hair. I had this, I often pick up at the thrift store. There'll be like bulk packages of doll making things, and I've gathered a good basket of them now. So I had this jute hair in there, and so I'm going to use that for one of these dollies. And I just glued it on. I did not, really have an idea. I just glued it in this pattern, and hey, it turned out it looks not too bad. So she's also probably going to have a handkerchief or something on her head, so how the hair overall is not that big of a deal. Little color on their lips. I just used some marker on my little pointer tool here, and If you know what this tool is called, you can let me know in the comments, but I have no idea. Anyways, and just put the color in there. I used reddish for her, or maybe more of a plum, I guess, and then a reddish brown for grandma. And then once I had her lips done for this lady, I put a little dab of glue in her mouth and added a little piece of rice just to look as her teeth, and it looks pretty good. So grandma doesn't have very much space in her mouth when she dehydrated there, and anyways, I don't want to go changing it, and so she just has the lips, and we'll see how the others turn out, which I will share them in my community post whenever I get the other ones done. I am going to make one will be a boy, and we'll see what the other will be. I thought maybe I could, well, do maybe a witchy one for like Halloween time or something. That might be cool too. So anyway, stay tuned to my community post, and I'll share my future pictures of them there, of any I make. So Grandma, I decided should have some glasses, so I chose this gold wire, and I'm going to do it. I figured the size of this marker cap was a good size for the lens size, and so I just wrapped that around and then did a little space and then wrapped another one and bent my wire and made my ear part, and then I snipped that. So once I was sure that they were a good space and we're going to line up with her actual beady eyes, I cut the wires a little bit shorter and then just poked them right into the apple. It was a little difficult to, I was careful and did a little bit each side at a time to make sure I didn't break my apple, because they're quite spongy but have been pretty durable to work with too for apples. So I'm not a delicate crafter by any means. Once the glasses were on, all that was left was to give these ladies a little blush to doll them up and put their heads on their bodies, and we have got ourselves an apple doll. I hope you enjoyed the crafting with me, and I'll be back creating something else soon.